I'd like to call to order the Monday, February 28, 2022 regular meeting. Mrs. Cahill, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Here.
Mr. Fulham?
Present.
Thank you. Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No.
All right. Item 1.4, approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And section 2, we'll start with discussion and comments from the board. We'll start with 2.1, legislative. Mr. Leeds.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of listening in to the OSBA town hall last week, and 3 items were brought up, 3 House bills they discussed briefly. House Bill 290, which is the backpack bill. That bill is probably dead in committee. There's nothing new on that. The House Bill 327, which is the critical race theory, there's still a lot of discussion on that, and that's a long ways off from being adopted, or there's going to be a lot of changes in that according to the OSBA. And House Bill 126 is the property tax bill, same thing there. That has been put back to the Senate for to take a look at the changes that the House made on it. So that's still in committee. Also, they reminded us that the remote meetings of school boards will cease and desist as of 6/30 this year. So we got to keep that in mind. And then the last item is the one that is a problem as far as I'm concerned. The Republican state lawmakers across the U.S. are trying to require schools to post all course materials online so parents can review them, and part of a broader national push by the GOP for a sweeping parents' bill of rights ahead of the midterm congressional elections. And at least one proposal would give parents with no experience the power over curriculum choices. Parents also could file complaints about certain lessons, and in some cases can sue the schools. Now, the Ohio bill would affect public, private, charter, as well as colleges and universities that participate in the state's dual enrollment program for 7th through 12th grades. That's a big deal. And so that hasn't come to fruition yet. There's going to be a lot of discussion on that. I made some comments that I called them today, and made some comments because, in my estimation, we need to do a better job. When I say we, the educational system needs to do a better job in reporting back to us how our kids are doing in tech schools, in colleges, and what have you. And I don't see any reason why that can't be done with the computerization that we've got today. That ought to be done. We ought to be able to look at that in all subjects and say, okay, we got a problem in this area. It's either in our curriculums, in the way we're teaching, or something like that. I don't know. But there's a way around this. And, at least they listened to me, and they said we're going to take it back to our people and see what we can do. So we'll see. That's all I have.
Thank you. Item 2.2, Butler Tech, Mr. Guido. Good to see you back, Brett.
Mr. President, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Buzzkirk, and Treasurer Cahill. Thank you for having me this evening. I appreciate it. I do want to thank you for your nomination back to represent Monroe on Butler Tech. We have had a busy year beginning so far. I gave some handouts to you guys as usual. I did the newsletter. encompasses both our secondary education update as well as our adult ed course. If you'll look at the second one I sent out, this is a flyer we have been handing out to our businesses. We have a business advisory meeting that we held at Lori's Roadhouse last month. Robert came. I appreciate your attendance there. What, about 175 business leaders were there? So it was good. Some key things I want you to look at is if you look at the orange here, 2270 applications were received for entrance into Butler Tech, and only 1,546 were accepted into those programs. That is one of the critical things that we have really been working on, is our capacity to have spots available for all of our students. The enrollment process was just completed. This is the first year that I've actually got multiple phone calls from people that didn't get into the program. We're kind of a little bit in trouble from our own success. I mean, kids are really wanting to go to the programs, but we're limited because of school funding, what that capacity can be. Our goal at Butler Tech is to increase the programs and grow the programs to be able to provide everybody that wants to be a welder or get into the cosmetology program or go to the bioscience center or the natural science center out here, to be able to go without an application process. So until the legislature fixes how they fund us, we're in the same cap situation that Monroe is. That's becoming harder and harder to do. So, in fact, I had a meeting today with Senator Lang to discuss exactly this. Like, we have to fix it. It's going to be discussed again at the next biennial cycle to see if we can get relief, stop that cap. Once they do that, we are ready, willing, and able to expand the programming, so we don't have to say no to any of these kids. About a third of kids that applied didn't get into the program, and that's very, very unfortunate. So hopefully we'll fix that. I did go to Columbus earlier in February, the first part of February, met with Representative Carruthers, Blessing, Senator Blessing, Representative Paul, Representative Gross, Representative Creech, and I'm sure somebody else I forgot. But we discussed exactly the same thing. I mean, it's been our message to them forever. But the meeting today with Senator Lang was pretty promising. The fact that we are going to be invited to their Business First Caucus, which will meet next year. It's a while away, but it makes more sense to wait closer to that biennial negotiation to be able to do that. So hopefully we'll get some feedback from that and really be able to fix the issues we have. So that's my message about funding and our programming that we are offering right now. Unfortunate that certainly some Monroe students didn't get in. I got some emails on those. Our system changed last year to a lottery system. I think I shared that with you guys. Before, students had to interview, and the student and teacher got to have that dialogue back and forth, and it was chosen that way. This time now, it is just a straight lottery. It's completely random. Our superintendent's son did not get in. He's a Monroe student, so it truly was very, very random. And the last thing, I don't really need to give you much of a building update. You probably saw it coming up the hill, but very impressed with that and excited to see that completion. Should be still on track. Hopefully, at the end of the summer, we'll be having a ribbon cutting and going from there. Any questions?
I have a question. On your on the programs, are all the programs full, or does that make sense? Like, is there like an overabundance of students that want to do welding and then not an overabundance that want to do cosmetology? I know those are two extremely different. I just wondered if all the programs got filled up.
So there are some programs that obviously are a lot more attractive and have a lot more applicants. Welding is one of them. In fact, we're going to sunset one of our other programs. The auto collision program is now going away at D. Russell Lee. And it's going to be replaced with a second welding lab, because there's just so much desire for that, and, you know, the businesses around are saying we have to do that. And so that would be an example of kids that really had a lot more competition. Cosmetology is another one, our IT program. All of those programs are very competitive and difficult to get in. I would say that at the School of the Arts, there are still openings, and there are some other random programs in there. Through the application process, the kids pick their first choice, and then they pick their second choice. And they're assigned by that lottery a number to their applications. So if you got a very low number, you got a chance that, you know, because we still have kids that move out of the district or decide not to accept and do that. But if they don't get accepted on their first offer, they are allowed to go down to their second offer. And sometimes, you know, they only want that one particular program and they're not interested in another. And so then sometimes other spots open up. So I would say if your student got a very low number, there is a shot that they could still get into the program that they wanted to get in. But, you know, just communicate with Monroe's counseling department as well as Butler Tech's counseling department.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Finance.
Finance. So we have not had a finance committee meeting. Mrs. Cahill has said we need to have one soon, so probably before their next meeting we'll have one.
Thank you. And item 2.4, student achievement.
Yep, we've got a lot of things to talk about today, so I'll start with the primary school. So every month, a student is selected from each class at the primary school as Hornet of the Month. These students serve as excellent role models for our Monroe primary B statements, which are be respectful, be responsible, be a problem solver, be prepared. So I want to congratulate the following students who represented our schools and our community at the highest level in February: Lincoln Macbeth, Addison Tyree, Audrey James, Finley Brown, Samuel Hodge, Ryan Farah, Macy Parrish, I'm going to butcher this one, Shay Adhikari, Hayden Lyle, Anderson Hampton, Preslin Ermlich, Liam Sally, Reed Burton, Ava Caudill, Addison Snow, Harper Bain, Charlie Hampton, Addie Fulham, Winston Fraley, Valor Gaston, Maribel Adamsey, Harper Miller. So congratulations to all those primary students that were Hornets of the Month. Our elementary school, again, worked with the American Heart Association this year for our Kids Heart Challenge, Jump Rope for Heart. We had 200 students participate in raising funds for a total of $9,885. Our fifth grader, Ariana Turco, was our top fundraiser, raising $401. Mrs. Grimm's third grade class won both top class for money raised and number of participants with 14 students and raised $957. This is our 15th year working with the American Heart Association and Jump Rope for Heart. Over the years, Monroe Elementary has raised a total of $177,049 to help with research and education for heart-healthy living. So thanks for all the students and staff who made this year's challenge fun and successful. At the junior high level, each month the staff, I won't read all of this every meeting, I just want to get this one out up front so we know what we're identifying, okay? All right, each month the staff at Monroe Junior High School nominates students to receive the Student of the Month Award. From those nominations, Mr. Stanger selects one student from each grade. In order to be nominated, those students must clearly demonstrate our 3 R factor characteristics of better together, relentless effort, and stand up and own it. In addition to showing our R factor traits, these students must clearly demonstrate excellence in the classroom and display Hornet pride at all times. Congratulations to February's Junior High School Students of the Month. Our 7th grader is Lena Bosnikovsky. Lena is a model student. She's incredibly hardworking and sets a great example for her peers. She's an active participant in class, and her work is always completed in excellence. She is patient, kind, and can work well with anyone. I know I can always count on Lena to try her best and to do the right thing. For these and many other reasons, Lena would make an excellent choice to receive the honor of Student of the Month. That's from Mrs. Boggs, her 7th grade social studies teacher. And in the 8th grade, we've got Addie Bevac. Addie is one of those students you can always count on. She is continuously caught up with her assignments and even finds time to help those students around her when they need help. She is well-rounded in that she finds time for all of her activities and even has volunteered her time to help her peers in study tables. She doesn't provide them answers, but rather coaches them to help them figure out the solutions. She works with she works the problems out alongside those students to make sure she is providing them the correct information. She is always smiling, and you can tell she genuinely cares about the students around her. That's from Miss Jeffers, her 8th grade Algebra 1 teacher. I also want to congratulate our junior high school winter student athletes who at the end of the second quarter carried a combined 3.59 GPA, led by our 8th grade cheerleading team that held a 3.73 GPA, which was the highest among all programs at the junior high level. So congratulations to all of our winter athletes getting it done on the field and on the court and in the classroom. And finally, at the high school, so we have a phenomenal music department led by Mr. Luke Brinkman. He'll be providing us with an update on the band program here shortly, as well as a solo performance by a student. So we'll be seeing that here in just a few minutes. Additionally, I want to personally acknowledge all of our talented student musicians who give a special shout out to the pep band who brought a ton of energy all season long. They create such a fun environment, and we are fortunate to have so many committed musicians in that program. It makes it really fun on Friday nights at a basketball game, and I want to thank everybody for participating there. And also, I want to congratulate our high school winter student athletes who at the end of the second quarter carried a combined 3.73 GPA, and our high school cheerleading team held a 3.16 GPA, which was the highest of all programs during the winter. So way to go cheerleaders on both fronts there. Again, everybody did a fantastic job and a great winter season for everybody, which we'll talk about a little bit more. So that's my wrap up.
Very good.
Cool.
Very good. Thank you. And item 2.5, MEA. All right. All right, moving on to section 3, recognition. Mr. Buskirk.
All right, do we need a second to get anything into position, Mr. Brinkman? Kayla, would you like to introduce yourself before you introduce what you're going to be playing? Or you're going to do that? Okay.
I got it here, yep.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Luke Brinkman, and I am the Director of Bands here at Monroe. I'd like to thank the members of the board for allowing us to be here today. Our performer this evening is Miss Hayla Muhammad. She is a junior here at Monroe High, and Hayla has been a member of our Monroe Symphonic Band, Marching Band, and Pep Bands throughout her entire high school career here. So she's very active in our band program. Hayla performed at the 2022 OMEA District 13 solo and ensemble event this past January and received the highest possible rating, a superior. This evening she will be performing the same solo for you. This is Jonathan's Light by Julie Davila, performed by Hayla Muhammad. Thank you, Hala. I have a bit of a state of the band address for you all. We currently have 286 students in grades 6 through 12 here at Monroe in the Monroe Band program. We have 95 sixth grade students, 106 junior high students, and 85 high school students. Both of our marching and pep bands had fantastic seasons this year, really, again, brought the energy to the games and the events. Our co-curricular ensembles have performed at the following events here at Monroe this year. We had our high school fall concert, and we had our sixth grade band, junior high bands, and high school bands winter concerts at the end of 2021. We also had 27 high school students perform at the OMEA District 13 Solo and Ensemble event at Lakota West High School in January, where each student who performed either earned a superior or excellent rating, the two highest ratings you can achieve. 2 weeks ago, we sent 3 high school students, Hala Muhammad on percussion, Sarah Perkins on trumpet, and Gabe Salazar on flute, 3 juniors, and 2 junior high students, Owen Funk on tuba and Ellie Ott on flute, to Wright State University for the 2022 Wright State University Honor Band Weekend, where they rehearsed and performed with some of the most talented student musicians in Southwest Ohio. And the month of March is going to be a really busy one for us. This Thursday at 6 o'clock, our concert and symphonic bands will be performing with our Monroe High School Chorale Choir here at Monroe for our OMEA District Large Group Preview Concert as we prepare for Large Group, which will be held on Saturday, March the 12th at Fairfield High School. Concert band will be performing at 10 a.m. and symphonic band will be performing at 11 a.m. Finally, on Friday, March the 25th, will be our annual Sounds of Sundays Ice Cream Social. All band students in grades 6 through 12 partake in this event. It is a themed event, so this year it is video games. The students chose that. And we will have an en masse performance with all 286 students performing a piece together at the same time. The event will begin at 5:30 p.m. I'd like to take a real quick moment here to personally thank the school board, administrators, guidance counselors, and secretaries at all 4 buildings, in addition to the custodial staff and our Monroe Band Boosters, for playing such a vital role in the success of our Monroe Band program. Thank you so much, and go Band.
Thanks, Luke. And I just want to say, Luke is, I've watched him on the sidelines for the last few years, and he gets out there with the pep band, and I just want to give you all the credit in the world for what you do. It is extremely important to our district, and to me personally. I think it's a phenomenal thing for our children to have music in their life, and thank you for being so passionate for what you do and leading the charge for our 286 students. I'm sure they're going to do great all together in sync. Yes. Perfect on the 25th. So thanks for being here. Thank you.
Phenomenal job that you did. You had, I would have been intimidated with having 1 in each hand, but having 2 in each hand, yeah, I'd have been lost. So great job.
Awesome job.
Very good. I've said it more than once that Monroe is very fortunate to have such a strong music department, not just at the high school, but all the way kindergarten through all the grade levels. So thank you again. Next up is Mr. Silverman. There he is. He is going to be recognizing Mr. Jamie Brashear. So I'll let you come on up.
Thank you. So about almost 9-10 years ago in 2013, the Southwest District of the Ohio High School Athletic Association, who we're a member of, they're actually the ones responsible for conducting our sectional and district level postseason state tournaments, and then the regionals and the state are conducted by the OHSAA. But there's 6 districts around the state, and we're part of the Southwest. They began a program called the Friends of Athletics Award. And that program was designed to recognize all those people behind the scenes that, don't get their name called on Friday night, but play a role in making Friday night happen, or Saturday morning, or Tuesday afternoon, whatever the event is. All those behind the scenes people. We were actually lucky enough a few years back, Mr. Leeds was recognized for a similar role on the chain gang with the Friends of Athletics Award, and that's named after Dale Kramer now, who Dale was the longtime principal at Brookville High School and OHSA Southwest District Secretary. So it's called the Dale Kramer Friends of Athletics Award. And this year, that nomination form came out to all area ADs, and the one person just came to mind right away that is so instrumental to our school and community, and that was Jamie. Jamie is one of those guys who anything I need, he'll do. But more importantly, he makes my life so easy because I always say I need buses, I need teams, I need officials, I also need a clock operator. And to have somebody who really knows what they're doing and does it so well and is so well respected by officials and opponents and our own coaches makes my life so easy because I don't worry about that. It's 4 o'clock and the game's starting in a half hour. Jamie's going to be there. It just doesn't even cross my mind. And Jamie's a 1992 graduate of Monroe, and while he was here at Monroe, he also was a member of the athletic training staff under former athletic trainer Stu Wilson, and assisted him. And since graduating, starting back in '98, graduated in '92, but in '98, Jamie began working scoreboards for us. He'd worked JV football games, high school basketball games, high school volleyball games, junior high basketball games, junior high volleyball games, and that's not just one game a night, it can be 2, 3. Baseball games, softball games. By my rough estimate, Jamie is doing anywhere between 125 to 150 events a year for us. He is always around and always busy. And actually last year during the pandemic, when we moved all of our basketball games into the high school gym for capacity purposes, Jamie was literally in the gym almost every single night because we were scheduling junior high games on days that we didn't have high school games. So not only that, one of the things that makes Jamie special is we've got 2 boards. We've got the normal board that runs the clock and the time, but then we've got the board that runs all the individual player stats. Fouls, points. Jamie does both at the same time. At my previous district, we paid 2 separate people to do both of them individually because it's just not possible unless you're incredibly special like Jamie is. So, when Jamie's not behind the score table running a clock, he's helping out somewhere else. It's not uncommon to see him hanging out in the concession stand with Dave Rolfe, helping when things get busy, or if he's on the sideline during a football game. And when he's not at an event, I still will get a text from him, hey, how'd we do that night? And it's people like Jamie that make high school sports so wonderful because he embodies everything that there is about a community. And, your school and where you're from and the passion that you have and you care for it. And you just can't replace people like Jamie. And so when this opportunity was made available, it was a no-brainer. And I kind of started fishing around for some history on him, and I was asking Dave, and I kind of caught him off guard one day before a junior high game, getting some feedback. But we were fortunate enough that the Southwest District recognized how special Jamie is as well. And so this Sunday at halftime of the 2 p.m. boys Division I basketball game at UC, Jamie will be recognized with 5 others at half court as one of the 2022 recipients of the Southwest District Dale Kramer Friends of Athletics Award. So I appreciate the board and the opportunity to recognize Jamie because, Jamie, we couldn't do what we do without you. You make our lives so much easier, but more importantly, you do a phenomenal job for our student athletes. And we just thank you for everything that you do. So, well-deserved, and we're looking forward to seeing you recognized at half court on Sunday. So.
Very good. One thing I will add, yes, we'll definitely get a picture. One thing I want to add, I've had the pleasure of working with Jamie side by side for 9 years now at basketball, 8, 9 years. And hands down, I watch him over there as I'm announcing the game. And I watch him over there hitting the buttons, and I'm like, yeah, I would be completely lost. The scoreboard would be upside down. So Jamie, hands down, the best scoreboard operator in the state of Ohio, hands down, and I can speak very crystal clear on that.
And I will say that is literally recognized by officials who come and do our games. I mean, they know Jamie. He's a staple. When he's not there, there's a short time period last year where Jamie couldn't be at the games, and people were asking, "Where's Jamie? Where's Jamie?" Because they know he's there. They're expecting to see him. And that short time period that he wasn't there, we didn't use the side panels because it was too chaotic. We're going to make sure we got the score and the time, and that's it. So, yep. So Jamie, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yes,
So,
Pitcher?
sure.
All right. All right.
Awesome.
Moving on to section 4, comments from the public. Seeing none, we will move on to section 5, treasurer's business. Mrs. Cahall, this is on you.
First, I'd like the board to approve the minutes from January 10th. We had three meetings, well, 2 meetings and 1 budget hearing on January 10th.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.2.
Okay. Next, I'm asking the board to approve the treasurer's financial report for January 31st, 2022.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
We'll give that to you. Thank you, Mr. Foley. All right.
Okay. I'd like to point out a couple of things. I'm trying to evolve my financial report from the way it has been in the past, and I've added a few more data elements, and I'm not sure if this will be the final report or not, but anyway, it's just evolving. But I wanted to point out a couple of things. If you go down to the next report after well, first of all, our general fund has $29,881,000 in it. Wait, sorry. Just go, yeah, okay. Nikki, go up a little bit, please. Keep going up a little bit. Okay, so traditionally I give just a report of all the funds that we have and the total balance in those funds. Well, I decided to kind of consolidate them to show the meaning of these funds. And as you can see, the general fund sticks out right here, and the current balance is $29,881,000. The special revenue funds are our grants and our athletics, and they're in this line here. And then the other 2 funds that are important are debt service, which we pay our bond with. It's this fund, the current balance is $3 million in it. We get tax money in that fund. And the next fund is the permanent improvement fund. And that fund can be used for permanent improvements in our facilities. And so if I show this every month, then you can see what the current balance is. We pay our loans, our stadium, field house, and central office, bus garage out of that. But it is accumulating money, which will be available if we want to do something like build something or improve our facilities. So this total down here is the same as this total here. So this sort of summarizes what's above there.
Yeah.
And so I thought it might have a little more
No,
meaning.
I like that.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And then a couple others, if you go down to the next page. Okay, so what's important is we want our revenue to at least keep up or exceed, well, we want it to actually be more than the year before. And because we know our expenses are going to be more than the year before. So we want to compare the years and show that it's increasing. So this is all general fund, and there's only really two sources of income: local property taxes and the state foundation funding. And this all other is local property taxes. All other is really our TIF and RID money that comes from through the city, but it is property tax revenue. So so this shows January 31st this year, the ending of the month, and this shows last year. And so you can see our tax money, it's like 1.6 million more than this time last year. I don't know how it's all going to end. We get tax money fall and spring, in March and September. Well, yeah, March. And so once we're done with March, we can actually compare property tax revenue. And so that will be interesting. And, okay, so here's property tax, and then the state foundation, we already know, is going up like $1 million. So that's why at this time of year, well, one other thing is, it did go up, but it's not consistent. They sort of plopped a bunch of money in our account in January when they gave us our new amount. They said, oh, here, we'll catch you up real fast. So it's a little misleading when you're looking at time of year, because it's gonna play out that, you know, it may not be exact. And we know it's gonna be at least $1 million more, but it's a little bit misleading right now. So we'll just watch it every month. And then our expenses down here, mostly I look at salaries and benefits, and you can see $646,000 this time of the year. So will it be like $1 million more at the end of the year, or 1.2 million? I mean, we're through January, so it's a little over half the year. So that, since that is going up, that's why we want this to go up there. So down here, some of our grants are paying for purchase services and supplies and that kind of thing. So that's why we spent less this year than last year. And this is not consistent either. Purchase services, we get big bills one month and not the next. I mean, Butler County ESC bills us for a psychologist, but they bill us like 2 or 3 times a year, and, you know, so it's not like every month. Now, salaries and benefits are every month is very consistent, you know. So, so those are the 2 things I wanted to point out. And so if you go down to the next, keep going down. Oh, I did want to point out interest revenue. I just can't get over, you know, look how, 400,000, in 19 and 20, we had 600,000 in interest revenue. And because interest rates, everybody's getting money on their investments. And so we had, you know, 400,000 extra revenue there, and now it's back to, you know, less than that. That was 21 was 3. So it's kind of, that was just a nice, you know, bump, you know, nice revenue that I missed now. But anyway, okay, so then go down a little more, please. Okay. Oh, one other thing, keep going a little bit more. Okay, so we talk about staffing, and I decided to put the numbers for the grants, like ESSER, which will expire 25, and so we want to keep in mind that the people we hire with that grant will have to be paid out of the general fund if we continue those positions. So, I mean, I think it's just helpful to see, and these, some of these are part-time, some of these are subs, so it's kind of misleading there too. It's not like 9 full-time teaching staff, but it's still important to know, you know, that we're spending our resources, our grants, that we'll have to, we'll be moved back up here, and we want to be prepared for that. So, okay, that's all I wanted to share with you today. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
And as I said, we will have a finance meeting very shortly, because,
No, Holly, I do like the evolution of the treasurer's report, because it actually takes it to the next level.
oh,
So, thank you for doing
Okay.
that. I like that.
oh, good, okay, thank you,
Yes.
Dave. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.3,
I'm asking the board to approve the bond fund report.
may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we had no payments or revenue in the bond fund, and our current balance is $3,028,301.
Where'd he go?
Is everything where it should be?
Yes, is everything where it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.4,
Next, I'm asking the board to approve the annual resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Getting burned over here.
Little slow, Tim. Hey, Mrs. Cahill, can you do me a favor? Can you just explain this in simplest terms, just to kind of give everyone just an idea of what this is?
Okay, so in December, January, we vote on the tax budget, which the tax budget is showing our mills that we expect to charge this year to meet our obligations for our levies. That, and then we approve that and send that to the Butler County Auditor. And the Butler County Auditor then sends us this back. It's a resolution accepting the mills that we have to charge this coming year, and we approve that. So it's kind of like we're both on the same page. And all local governments have to do this resolution, townships, villages, and then, of course, schools. And ours is due by no later than March. Some other ones are due in July, and they've been doing this for 40 years. I mean, it goes way back, so.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why no one understands what it means. I don't know, it's a different language, I get,
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you just caught it. We just caught it over here as well.
I mean, we can ask him if they.
Yeah. But he left.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.5,
Asking the board to approve the FAFSA state grant in the amount of $3,642.32 that came to us through Butler County ESC.
may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
I forgot Mr. Fuller.
Oh, Mr. Fulham.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Aye, that's all right.
I got good stuff. Okay. And Mr.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.6.
I don't know how we didn't catch this, I apologize. Okay, good. Okay, I'm asking the board to approve the group rating program for Butler, for BWC through Shakely, and this will save us about $14,675 in our workers' compensation coverage.
We like a savings. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, AJ. Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.7.
And finally, I'm asking the board to accept the single audit for 2021. It was conducted by Julian and Grube. This is the annual audit, and this is the first time we have not had any citations or recommendations in a management letter, so it was a really good, clean audit.
Good.
Oh, good.
It's great to hear.
Excellent.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Good job.
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic job.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll share that.
We like saving money and we like clean audits.
Yeah.
In that order, too.
Mrs. Kayal, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Kayal.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Item 6, Superintendent's update. Mr. Buzzkirk.
All right, I just have a few things here this evening. First, I wanted to talk, I sent some stuff out this afternoon, but I also wanted to just reiterate it here. Friday afternoon, the CDC changed the guidelines and lifted the mask mandate for public transportation, which included school buses. So effective immediately, masks for all Monroe students on schools is optional, not required, for students and staff. So I just wanted to reiterate that again. We got some information out this afternoon. The other thing I want to talk about real briefly with transportation is, I had mentioned it to all of you in one of my updates, but starting for next year, we are going to do a opt-in for transportation. And all that means is everyone is still, we're not taking transportation away from anyone. Anyone that wants transportation is allowed to get it, but we are going to have them sign up for it because we have many, many students that never ride the school bus. High school students that drive every day, elementary students that either, for whatever, reasons, work schedules, parents get dropped off, picked up every day. So currently, we route buses for every single student, regardless if they ride the bus or not. And this is just a way to help us make transportation a lot more efficient. I know people will ask, well, what if, first quarter goes by and I did not need transportation, but my job changed and now my daughter needs to ride the bus? You contact transportation, fill out a form, then I don't know exactly how many days, whatever it is now. So it gives you a week notice to change your transportation, and that's not a problem at all. That's currently if you change your stop or whatever, there is a waiting period. So, but I wanted to share with you that representatives from Peterman will be here next board meeting to present, to talk a little bit more about that, answer any questions you guys may have. We actually even talked about, could we do it possibly towards the end of this year? I think Mr. Leeds, you'd even asked me about possibly after spring break. Our spring break is so late this year, we come back, we only have a couple of weeks of school, to be honest. So we are going to work on a lot of communication and having parents sign up and get that done before the end of this school year, because I'll just be honest, when you do this at first, people get nervous and they think we're taking transportation away from them. And that is, I just want to reiterate, that is definitely not the case. Anybody that wants it can have transportation. It's just, if you sign up for it, it makes our routing a lot more efficient. I'll share with my own daughters, just because the way their school falls, I drop them off to school every single day on my way to work. So when I signed up for transportation this year, I only did PM. So they ride the bus home every day, but I drop them off every school. So that, when their transportation department was routing, they did not have to worry about a bus stop or routing them for the morning drop. So again, we'll see. It'll probably save us some time on overall routes, consolidating bus stops possibly. There's a lot of things that it can do that can make it a lot more efficient. We don't like, especially the little ones, being on buses for long periods of time, so hopefully this can help with that some. So, anybody have any questions about that? No. Peter, Amy will be here next board meeting to talk about it, and she can answer any specific questions that you have. I want to talk about I know Mr. Prohaska, Mr. Stanger have been advertising this a little bit, but in March, the testing schedule, they're doing something a little different this year. It's not something that is unusual that other districts don't do. For the tests, there is going to be a 2-hour delay for grades 7 through 12 for students that are not testing. Actually, it's no junior high, correct? It is just just high school students that aren't testing, because not everyone in the upperclassmen especially have to take the state test. So there'll be a 2-hour delay. Frankly, that is a much, much better testing environment for our students, so they can do better. They come, they're ready, they take their tests first thing in the morning, and then they're done with their test the rest of the day. You don't have to spread it out through the day. Kids, there's lots of studies that show that, if you take your test at 1 in the afternoon, especially if you're like me and you eat a big lunch, you're ready to fall asleep and you don't do as well. So, first thing in the morning, that's when kids are going to do their best. We want them to, they work hard. We want them to be able to demonstrate that. So if you can't come in, the transportation will run at normal time. So if you can't get a ride later in for the 2-hour delay, transportation will pick you up. You can have study hall in the morning with supervision. They will allow you to be here at school. We know work schedules, we don't want to inconvenience parents. But again, it is, they'll be sending more information out and reminders as we get closer to that testing date in March. So. All right, and the last thing I got a message from City Manager Bill Brock that they had their City Council retreat recently, and they want to do a joint meeting with the school board. And so he reached out to me today, and we had kind of had discussion about that, so I will be getting with him to get that scheduled. And to be honest, I'll have to talk with somebody that's done that in the past to see how it's structured, where, when, all of those details, and we will let everybody know when that'll be. I think it's a great venture for the city and the school district to work together, talking about not just growth and how it affects the school, but there's a lot of things that the city and the school governments can work together on. So, okay.
Good.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we can move on to 7.1.
Item 7.
All right, 7.1, it is recommended the board approve the following resignations. We do have a number of resignations. I believe a couple retirements in there, a number of teachers moving on to either different careers or different parts moving. As far as I know, no one's on this list due to the new superintendent, so.
May I have a motion,
But I know of
please?
at least, so.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 7.2.
All right, we, as always, we are continuing to look for substitutes in all areas, so recommended the board approve the following subs.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 7.3.
It's recommended the board hire the following new employees. If you saw earlier in the resignations, we had a cafeteria employee retire, and this is replacing her.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 7.4.
It's recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts. We have a number from the spring musical, as well as a couple clubs, and a lot of spring sports, and cleanup from a few of the winter sports. I do have to say that if you see on there, there is a lot of them that say volunteer coach. This community and Mr. Silverman does a great job of really getting people involved to help out our kids, even when there isn't a paid contract. So I appreciate that.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 7.5.
Recommend the board approve 2 stipends from Wright State. We had 2 student teachers in the first semester, and so they've completed that, and the stipend goes to those cooperating teachers.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Fulham? Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And Section 8, Superintendent's Other Business.
Yeah, it's recommended the board approve the National Web Check Program Services Equipment Agreement, and that's just the background check for volunteers, new employees, where they go get their fingerprinting over at central office. So.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions? Mrs. Hagedorn, or?
We're all over the place.
No, I'm looking at the clock that just went out, and I'm wondering why the clocks went out. And so, Mrs. Cahill, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.2.
It's recommended the board approve the easement to the Duke Energy to service the Butler Tech NSC construction. I believe Jesse shared a meeting or 2 ago where they just need to run some, I think it's electrical, isn't it, or fiber or something, just to the new building. It's just, cuts across the corner of our property. So.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.3.
It's recommended the board approve the contract with the Warren County ESC for 1 student to attend the Wellness Center for the remaining year. There's the cost at $30,800, and it is paid for out of grant funds.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 8.4.
It's recommended the board approve the resolution for membership into the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Just
May I
an
have a motion?
annual thing that we need to do.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.5.
It's recommended the board approve a high school track and field to participate in the Eastern Relays in Louisville, Kentucky, April 22nd. Again, there is not an overnight trip, but because it is out of state, it needs to be approved, even though it's closer than going to Cleveland. But that's just a strange rule, but anyway. That's just my little
May I
comment.
have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 8.6.
It's recommended the board approve a high school trip to Europe. They'll be going to Germany, France, and Spain, June 6th through the 19th of this summer. I just want to share a little bit that I believe they presented this to you back in January of 2020, and then obviously it got canceled that summer. They pushed it back, and we're looking at it last summer, and again got canceled. So it is currently planned Although if there is war in Europe, they probably will unfortunately cancel again. Let's hope that, or I should say more of a war. Let's, hope that things calm down and they are able to do it. Obviously, parents have been notified of cancellation notices and they can refund, the refund policy all along. So this is just, it does need to be improved in case things work out and they are able to go.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
I think this sounds amazing. It's not a question. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
I think they need some chaperones, right?
Right?
Yeah, I was bummed because I know this was talked about last year and it sounds like the year before, so hopefully the kids get an opportunity to do this because I did a similar, I didn't get to go to Europe, I went to the Bahamas, which was really cool after my senior year, and it was a great experience and getting to do something that I've never done in my life since. So hopefully they get a chance to do this because it's really a neat experience, I know, and I'm sure it'll all come to fruition. So.
Anything else? Mrs. Kale, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 8.7.
It's recommended the board approve inter-district open enrollment in grades kindergarten through 12 for the 22-23 school year in accordance with board policy.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Can I make a quick comment about that?
Yes.
too? I just want to know, this is something we need to do annually, although we don't have any room, and so we don't really take any students. There's a very, very slim possibility, and we do have to advertise it, but unless you're an employee of the district, you're probably not going to get a spot. So we're upfront with everybody, but we still do. It's a great district, and a lot of people want to come here, so we do have to turn a lot of people away, but we're not going to overcrowd the classrooms more than they are for open enrollment.
Any questions? Mrs. Kale, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. And item 8.8.
It's recommended the board approve the following donations, and again, they're listed there. We've got a lot of generous people in this community.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions?
Thank you for the donation.
Thanks for the donations, yeah.
Yeah.
Always appreciated.
All right, Mrs. Kale, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 8.9.
That is just the calendar of upcoming events. No approval needed.
Okay.
And moves you on to section 9.
Section 9, before we go to adjournment, we will start with comments from the board. Start with you, Mr. Leeds. Anything you want to close out with?
Yeah, I'm glad to see that the light at the end of the tunnel is getting a little bit brighter on the COVID situation, and thank you. We're out of the mask at this time. I'd also like to congratulate the winter sports and the various programs that were carried out in the winter. A good job for everybody, all the coaches, all the athletes, and all the people participating in various band functions, and the band director and choir director and everybody. It was fantastic, and nothing but good reports from the public on that. And again, thanks to the staff and to you, Robert, for the job you guys did with managing this COVID situation. That you guys did a tremendous job, as we've said many times in the past board meetings, and goes without question. Thank you. That's it.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Okay, I just have a couple of things I'd like to discuss or mention is I was very excited to hear that the mask mandate and the transportation was lifted. I'm sure that's a welcome thing that's coming along. I also wanted to mention it's been since January board meeting to this one, a lot has happened in the athletics. I know that the education is very important, but athletics is just as important. I think it's like for learning goals, set goals, teamwork, that kind of thing. Like student athletes learn a lot just from doing the extracurriculars. And I think it was middle of January, the Ohio High School Football Coaches Association recognized the Monroe High School football program for the 2021 program for the academic and athletic excellence. So the football team was recognized for their high GPA overall, which, I thought that was pretty amazing. I was like, wow, when it happened, Football team did really good playing football, but then they did really good in the classroom as well. Some of the other things like that Mr. Leeds has mentioned, it's end of the winter sports. The varsity cheer came in 5th yesterday in the state competition, and they came 2nd in the league, which is really a great accomplishment. The varsity wrestling team were the SWBL East champions for at the league championship. There were 4 league champions on the wrestling team, and actually sectionals was last weekend. 6 are going to districts and 2 are alternates. So that's this weekend. Fingers crossed they do well and go to state the following weekend. So that's pretty exciting. The swim team had 7 league champs and 2 completed at districts. The bowling, the Monroe had the boys and girls top average in our conference. So that's pretty good for the bowling team. I'd also had the band had several students receive superior and excellent ratings. That was before Mr. Brinkman came, and I really appreciate it. She did a wonderful job playing. That was beautiful. Yeah. And like Mr. Grant had mentioned, like using that what? I couldn't have done that. There's no way. So I really appreciate that performance. Yes. So that's all I have for
Thank
now.
you. Mr. Fulham?
A little redundancy here, so I apologize, but I've got my high fives from around the hive. Here we go. So our youth cheerleading clinic, so I want to give a high five to Coach Shannon Kelly and her staff for providing a great youth clinic for our Wee Hornet cheerleaders earlier this month. It's a really well-run program that I know we were all thankful to have back this year. The high school cheerleaders do an amazing job with teaching the youth cheerleaders, and I know everybody has an absolute blast during the halftime performance at the varsity boys basketball game. I hope we can have more games like that, not just those one games. It gets packed out, and they're a lot of fun, so let's keep doing that. High five to the competition cheerleading team. Placed 2nd at the SWBL competition, 3rd at Cheer for a Cure at Centerville High School, and 5th out of 16 teams at the OASSA State Championships yesterday afternoon at Pickerington North. That was 3 competitions in 2 weekends. Those girls are busting their tails like none other, and they really, really deserve a high praise for, they've had injuries, girls step up, some younger girls stepped into roles, and our cheerleading program is phenomenal. So great job to all of the participants. High five to Mrs. Fry, this is my favorite one for you, Dave, for organizing and creating a video to celebrate the Cincinnati Bengals' 3rd Super Bowl appearance, which featured Monroe students and staff in their Bengals gear. Very cool to see so many submissions. It was like a 5 or 6, 7 minute video. I mean, it was a long video. So everybody really got jazzed up for the game. Bummer that we didn't win, but man, it was fun for the city, and I'm glad that Monroe got to participate. And thanks to Mrs. Fry for putting all that together. Varsity Wrestling, so high five to the 22 SWBL East Champion Wrestling Program. That's phenomenal. Nathan Moser, freshman, Tucker Campbell, freshman, and Chris Reber, seniors, all finished 1st in their respective weight classes. Alex Pitch, who placed 1st in the 150 weight class, was also named the SWBL Wrestler of the Year. He also placed 1st over the weekend at sectionals, and this is all after suffering a lower leg injury on the football field just a few months ago. I was there. I have some really good photos from that game, and I have some really sad photos from that game. And to watch Alex bounce back and be named the top wrestler of the league after being in a hospital bed on homecoming, it was just phenomenal. So great rally around Alex, individual effort and team effort there. I also want to mention our district qualifiers: Nathan Moser, Tucker Campbell, Cooper Campbell, Alex Pitch, Gabe Maxwell, and Chris Reber. Ethan Volk and John Rasnick all advanced as alternates. So it's end of the year for the season, so there's a lot of athletics going on, but swimming and diving, high five to senior Calvin Gard and freshman Dawson Hall, who represented the Hornets swimming team at the OHSAA District Championships earlier this month. Calvin broke some school records, I believe. I don't know them off the top of my head, but had a great career. So, and Dawson, a freshman right behind him, going to districts is a really big deal. Sophomore Andrew Wilcox qualified, I just found out today, for the Division I Indoor State Championships at the 3,200 meter. So Alex is a stud on runner, and used to swim too. And then our 8th grade girls basketball team, high five to coach and team for finishing second in the SWVL tournament. Fantastic season. They only lost twice, so really successful season for them. And just a quick mention, Coach Oster, I know we got him approved last board meeting, was thrilled to see that he worked it out that he was going to be back overseeing the boys soccer program. Mike's a fantastic coach, a great person, such a great leader for our kids, as a lot of our coaches are just phenomenal, all of them really. And I want to thank him for coming back, and that's my high fives this month.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter.
I don't know what else there is to say. I feel like everybody already said everything, so.
And then after you, there's nothing left for me.
Yeah, I mean.
That's why you get the gavel.
Yeah, you get to hit the thing. But just thank you for everybody for being in attendance. If you guys haven't met Mark, make sure you stop over and introduce yourself. He's one of the new city council members. Tiffany, thank you for being here. Levon, thank you. But yeah, congratulations, everybody. Look forward to some softball this year. So, but yeah, I'll let Dave take it from here now, I guess. Keep it short and sweet. Unlike some people.
I was getting ready to have to call it.
That's what I'm about to send my signal to Cinda back there to.
No.
When you have that much good going on, you gotta recognize it, man.
No, congratulations to all of our winter sports. I mean, that's the thing, that's the beauty about Monroe. Not only are we academically sound, but athletically, we're solid. And it's good that we recognize all of our student athletes and our athletics and band. And our cheerleaders Shannon does an amazing job. So great job to everybody. Great job to our administrators and our staff. And Robert and Holly, thank you for everything that you guys have done. And it looks like we are getting closer to a little bit of normalcy with that news from Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn? Clocks aren't on.
So moved.
7:42. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mrs. Kayal, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried and meeting adjourned. Yes.
You have too much fun with that.